do something useful and create something for posterity for our kids so that they can see that their mom and dad didn't just exist and then die.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Jeff Heilman Project. And before we get started, a big thank you and shout out to Brian for being on the episode last week. I hope that you all enjoyed that. And
Zerb.
I mean, that was some really cool.
That was
entrepreneurial content.
Podcast.
And then you guys, Jeff and Brian stood outside the studio
for
another 2 hours
minutes.
or whatever.
Yeah,
and I was
great.
thinking, like, you could have just walked him home. You guys could have kept the convo going. But it's always great to have guests on the Jeff Heilman Project. And as much as I enjoy our quality conversations, the yawning and all.
Do. It's good. I like to yawn. Yawning feels good.
How was your week so far?
I got to sit. Have any of you out there in TV land ever been so tired that you couldn't go to sleep? I have. Last night, I think I'd done 2 or 3 20-hour days of work and trying to get on a new sleep habit where I go to bed in the afternoon and then work all through the night, because a lot of the work that I do is contracts and quotes and account planning and emails and follow-up and project management and correspondence with people in Turkey and Italy and the UK and Amsterdam, which are way far ahead of me. So if I'm going to work with them, I got to push stuff out to them first. And so it helps if I can be up between the hours of 6 p.m. and 2 a.m. There's a beautiful 8-hour chunk of time. And so I'm trying to get on the Jeff Heilman Project sleep program, which is a 2-hour nap in the afternoon and then, about 4.5 to 5 hours of sleep in the morning right before I wake up for my first call, which I don't schedule anything before 7:30 a.m. now, so I can work through the night. And what that gives me is about a pretty consistent 17.5 or 18-hour day, and which I now break up with all my 5-minute buzzers and stuff. But it's wreaking havoc on the body because I'm also lifting heavy. I'm also doing intermittent fasting. More projects than I've had in a long time with the newsletter, the podcast, the digital and social media marketing and programs set out, and consulting, and my day job, and coaching a couple of guys through some pretty serious personal stuff. So it's been, my week has just been so much work.
Sounds like it's been extremely productive.
It's been productive, but there's a cost to it, and that cost has been sleep and health and energy level. But last night, I got to fall asleep watching the New York Yankees beat the LA Dodgers in Game 4 of the World Series so that they can hang on for one more try to see if they can do what no team has done before in history, come from 3 behind to win in a World Series. I got to hold the dog. That was the best part of my day.
I think everybody probably has a team. Who are you going for? The Dodgers or the Yankees? I think in our area, I would say 100% are voting for the Dodgers, and then there's Jeff. But hey, since when has that been anything different?
Yeah, basbasically story of my life. Just find out what most people do and then do the exact opposite.
Yeah, so today we're going to have some fun, and hopefully between the yawns, and we're going to encourage you.
Here's some, but if you talk about yawning, it's not going to help. I did get my water. I got my water. We have a beautiful brand of purified drinking water from our sponsor today, Good and Gaither.
No, not our sponsor. No.
They're not sponsoring this ad?
No, Good and Gaither.
Good and Gaither?
Good and Gaither is not
sponsoring this.
The episode. Not yet, anyway. Well. Okay, so we're going to play a game because that's evidently the attention span that we have today is of the size of a gnat. And so since we have a short attention span, we're going to play a game. And the game is going to go like this. I'm going to read you a quote, and you're going to, for whatever...
I love how she comes up with these ideas.
For a million points, if you get the quote without a clue, then you'll get 1 million points. If you can't come up with the clue, if you can't get the name... No, you don't get to use crap GPT, which is what I feel about crap GPT.
I love ChatGPT.
If you're, as an author and one who attempts to get ideas from heaven, I think it's the laziest thing on the planet. But we're not going to talk. We're not here to. We're not here to diss Chat
Are
GPT.
you anti-AI?
Okay.
Don't be hating on my robots.
Okay. Feeling spicy.
We are spicy, ladies and
here's
gentlemen.
the quote, and if you can come up with who said it, points. If you cannot come up who said it, I'm going to let Andrew guess who said it. And if Andrew or you cannot come up with who said it,
all right,
then I will give you a clue.
There might be some in there I haven't heard, so.
I tried to pick some that were pretty familiar. Who said, believe you can and you're halfway there? Or who is noted as saying, believe you can and you're halfway
Dennis
there?
Dennis Waitley from...
You have any idea, Andrew?
What is it?
Believe you can and you're halfway there.
It's either Norman Vincent Peale.
Benjamin Franklin?
It's either Norman Vincent Peale or Self-Love, the Self-Love guy. Schroeder? Schuler?
Okay.
Or Dennis Waitley. That would be my guess.
Here's your clue. It was a president.
That was close.
Who'd you say? Benjamin Franklin? Yeah, he was like, I ain't touching president with a 10-foot
And
pole.
one of our sons is named after him.
Andrew
Joe
Jackson.
Biden.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
Okay, it's a little
Aiden
older than
Quinn.
that. Both of you get no points. Theodore Roosevelt is actually quoted by saying,
Theodore
believe you
Roosevelt,
can,
okay.
and you are
So
halfway
the official
there.
sound for that is in the key of F.
Okay, if you're playing at home, I hope you got it, because this train is quickly derailing. Okay. Here's our next clue.
We don't make sense, folks. We make laughs. Go
Here's
ahead.
our next clue. Learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist.
Pablo Picasso.
Bing, 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 bing. You got that one. I was gonna throw you a softball on that one.
Thank you.
Who said, do one thing every day that scares you?
John Maxwell.
No. Andrew?
Sounds like something David Goggins would say.
No.
No, that's do something someday that might kill you. Do something every day that might kill you. That's
Okay,
David
so who said, do one thing every day that scares you? Albert Einstein, J.K. Rowling, or Eleanor Roosevelt?
I'd say Roosevelt.
Absolutely. Eleanor Roosevelt is
Okay.
quoted by saying,
I
do
get
one thing
A check with
every
an
day
asterisk.
that scares you.
Okay, Roosevelt.
And I'm going to repeat the Picasso quote one more time. It
That's
was,
two Roosevelts in three
learn
quotes.
the rules like a pro so you can break them
Yeah.
like an artist.
And he is. He also said,
A very disciplined artist.
good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Who said, don't count the days, make the days count. Do-do-do-do, do-do-do. Those of you at home,
I'll take
do you know who said it?
bowling for 200, Alex. No,
Well, it was not
I don't even
bowling.
have
It
an answer.
is a sports, someone who is notable for
Muhammad
sports.
Ali.
Yes, Muhammad Ali said, don't count the days,
I don't know how in the
make
world
the days
I got that.
count.
That's got an asterisk by it too.
The next one,
Absolutely.
and I'm gonna lean into Andrew on this one. If you cannot think
Okay,
of this
I will
one,
try. How did I get 2 out of 3? It's pretty good.
if you can dream it, you can do it.
Walt Disney?
Yeah, there you go. Walt Disney said that. Good old Walt.
That's
and
right.
if you haven't
I
been
actually-
to the Walt
I knew
Disney
that one.
Family Museum in San Francisco at the Presidio,
It's amazing.
it's amazing. I don't know if you can truly be a Disney adult without ever having gone to that museum, because that's pretty incredible.
Wow, these are really good quotes there, Mrs. H.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I try. The next one is a modern quote by a modern author who is still with us and has written numerous best-selling New York Times author
Malcolm Gladwell.
books. No. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The leader adjusts the sails.
Oh, that's John Maxwell.
Absolutely, 100%.
That smells like John from here.
One more time. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The leader adjusts the sails.
Dr. John C.
This following one is not new. It is an older quote from let's see. Okay, I know that this is going to make some people cringe because I'm going to say it, but 21st century began when?
21st century?
Yeah.
Jan 1, 2000.
Of what year?
Wait, 20th century?
Jan 1,
Yeah.
2000.
1901.
Okay, so what?
The 21st century.
Yeah,
you
the
just said.
21st century.
Jan
When
1,
is
21st. That's 2001.
what years is
Jan
that?
1, 2000.
And then the 20th century would be
Jan 1, 1900.
It's 1901 though, isn't it?
No.
1900. Okay, so this quote is from the 20th century, a
You
period
and I
of
were
time
born.
between 1900 and 2000.
Yes.
And it is: success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
I think that's another Roosevelt.
No.
FDR.
Nope. This man was a prime minister at one point.
Oh, Churchill.
Yes. Winston Churchill
Do
said,
we know any other prime ministers?
well,
in
there
this country?
have been some.
I know there's a lot of good ones, but I would.
Tony
I
Blair,
just,
right?
Yeah, Tony Blair.
Was it prime minister?
Margaret Thatcher.
Well, I said man, so I'm trying to think of any other male
Yeah.
prime ministers that I know of.
Who was before Winston Churchill? The Brits are going to kill me for not knowing
The
this.
one people don't like.
Well, some people like him. They liked him before they didn't.
Andrew.
It's Henry something.
No, it's it'll come to me. The guy that had the 3 meetings with Hitler and
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
That guy.
Neville Chamberlain.
Yeah, Neville.
Yeah.
Yes, so Winston Churchill is quoted by saying, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
Courage to continue. We love you, Winston.
Who said from the 21st century, I'm trying to think, was he around in the 21st century? Well, yes, he was around in the 21st century. Who said, the ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the
Steve
ones
Jobs.
who do.
That's Steve Jobs.
Very good.
That's right.
When did he pass?
2012.
Okay.
No, 11. Either
All right.
11 or 12.
Miss you,
Who
Steve.
said, okay, here's one that I've heard a few times from the 20th century. It is amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit.
That is FDR.
Nope.
No, Ronald Reagan.
Nope. I feel like we're playing the Mandela effect or something.
No,
Isn't that where
no.
you think it's somebody, but it's
JFK, I
not?
don't know.
No. It is Harry
president.
Truman.
Oh, it's Truman. Okay.
Truman
Forgive
is
me.
quoted
Yep,
by saying,
that's
"It
right.
is amazing what you can accomplish."
I remember
if you do
a
not
picture
care
of a
who gets the
president
credit.
with that saying on their desk, and it was Truman. Thank you.
Well, while we're slinging presidents, who can tell me who said, "I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party
That's
left me."
Ronald
Reagan.
Reagan.
There you go. Wee.
And they left a lot more than Ronald Reagan. That's for
Oh goodness. Okay.
sure. Oh,
How about this one? This one is not from the 20th or the 21st century. This one's going way, way back. There is only one way to avoid criticism. Do
That is to
nothing,
do nothing.
say nothing, and
Be
be
nothing.
nothing. Who said that?
I've read that quote a bunch of times. Mother Teresa.
No.
The Pope?
No. Philosopher.
Dale Carnegie?
No. Greek. It's that old.
Aristotle.
Aristotle.
Okay.
Aristotle is quoted by saying,
I mean, basically,
there is
Greek
only
philosopher.
one way
I know
to
Plato.
avoid criticism.
I know Aristotle.
Do nothing.
I know Plato.
Say nothing.
I know Aristotle.
And be nothing. And you know Plato because you can play with the dough.
You can play with the dough. He's a dough head.
Oh my goodness.
The
Okay,
original
so
dough-head
what
Play-Doh.
about this one? Don't be pushed by your problems, be led by your dreams.
Krista McAuliffe. The gal that blew up.
No.
No.
And I'm sorry that she's known as being that.
I mean, she
Yes.
tried, right? She got to space, like, almost.
This one's
That was
an
a
author.
horrifying, by the way, that was a horrifying day. That was a traumatic
That
day
was
for me.
traumatic.
I was in, I want to say second grade.
We were all in class watching.
And I was in class and I heard over the loudspeaker that
Were you not watching it on the We had the television in the room.
we didn't have the television in the room, no, but they called it over the loudspeaker and we were all crying. We're like, oh my gosh, that poor Poor gal. And there's other people too. Like, but she was like the most famous one because she was the first. I think she was the first civilian
Yeah.
in space, the first non-astronaut astronaut. Anyway, I don't know where we got on that, but God bless her. She did a great thing for humanity and trying something difficult and making us through all the space training programs. Be an example. And there are casualties when you're on the edge of trying to do something incredible. So,
Don't be pushed by your problems, be led by your dreams. Any guesses, Andrew? An author?
I don't. J.K. Rowling.
So this person is known for their pond. That's your clue.
Monet.
Ralph Waldo Emerson. Didn't he write
Oh, I'm like,
on Walden Pond,
On Golden Pond?
Pond or something
that
like
would be
that?
Peter Fonda. Walden.
Walden, right? There's
Yeah.
a pond, right?
There,
On
yeah.
Walden Pond. Don't be pushed
book
by
was
your
called
problems.
Walden. Yeah,
be
don't
led by your
Be
dreams.
pushed by your problems.
Be led.
Be led by your dreams.
This last quote is
Like
from someone
Mars
who
far.
who painted pretty perfectly, or at least it would appear pretty perfectly. And it is, I would rather die of passion than of boredom.
A
Who
painter?
quoted?
That actually helps,
that?
by the way, if you give like their occupation.
Yeah. I would rather die of passion than of boredom. Does this silence mean that?
Monet?
Not Monet.
It's
Although Monet was a fantastic
is it
artist.
Toulouse-Lautrec?
Vincent van Gogh
Vincent van Gogh.
said that he would rather die of passion
I knew
than
that.
of boredom.
I knew that. I've heard that quote before.
So
Vincent
while
van
we're
Gogh.
we're off of the quotes that I've brought to the table, and I know we still have a little bit of time, what are some? Maybe we could go around. Andrew, do you have a quote that you have off the top of your head that's one of your favorites?
Yeah, Theodore Roosevelt said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's good. That's brilliant. What about you, Lenny? Do you have a quote that comes to mind?
This is, I mean, the most famous book in the world is the Bible. And John 1 through 5. 1 through 1:5. I think is the most powerful words that I have ever heard. And King James is what I memorized, but in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him. Without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. And that's the Apostle John speaking probably in his 50s. I believe through a scribe, probably. I don't know. Maybe he was literate by then. Probably not. But he was talking about the light of man. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and darkness comprehended it not. I am a very sensitive person. I was, terrorized quite a bit by neighbors, some family members, some abusive stuff when I was younger, really young, really intimate, and just had parents that did the best they could to try to protect me. But they were not perfect at it. And as a result, I was in some pretty difficult situations at a pretty young age. And because of that, I don't like bullies. If anybody spends 5 minutes with me, bullies are like triggers for me, and I'll just tear their heads off in public and humiliate them, and I do all kinds of nasty things to bullies because I just don't like them. And to me, when I read those words and I saw that in the beginning was the Word and the Word was with God, he's talking about Jesus. And that, I mean, if anybody's diagrammed a sentence, you got to look at what the object and what the sentence is and what the subject of the sentence is, even to where some folks have changed that because it's so obvious when you diagram a sentence that what he's talking about is the Word of God, is Jesus manifested in human flesh, is the Word of God itself. It's so obvious when you actually diagram the sentence to see that that's what he's talking about, because there's no other way you could do it based on sentence structure. And when I started to see that the life that in him was life, the very sense of consciousness that we have as human beings, and the life was the light of men. To me, that's like a power source, like a Tony Stark reactor in his chest, right, providing energy. And I really like that. I think that quote has given me a lot of peace through the years of recognizing that I don't have to be so hurt. I don't have to be so afraid. I don't have to be so vulnerable all the time, or that I could be vulnerable without worrying about being hurt too badly. And because I feel like in me is light. And my light, our light as human beings, shines in darkness. And the people that don't understand, or the people that criticize us, I mean, people have said the nastiest stuff to me recently, daily almost. And I feel like I take a lot of hits, but I try to be nice to them as best I can. But if they really understood how much it actually impacted me, how much it actually hurt, I think they would be surprised. And maybe that makes me wimpy. I don't know. But it's the way I feel about things, and I like the idea of being able to burn really, really strongly from our core, and be able to burn so brightly and so strongly that nothing can hold us back other than our own lack of belief in ourselves and our own narrative. So that's my favorite quote, and I probably say it 50 times a day in my head.
How often do you think of the Roman Empire?
Yeah, how often do you think of the Roman Empire? About as often as I quote John 1:1-5.
Well, I know that for my quote,
Kind of heavy here, kind of a heavy Tuesday afternoon conversation about Jesus.
That's just kind of what we do here at the Jeff Heilman Project. We're a project.
We talk about
we're a
heavy
project,
stuff.
and we talk about heavy. We talk about light. We talk about all the way around. The quote that I always quote. I mean, I probably quote it multiple times during the day to myself, let alone to everybody around me, is do something ordinary in an extraordinary way, and you will garnish
the attention. Garnish.
Garnish.
You're going to put parsley on the rest of the world. No.
And you will garner the attention,
which is
of the
Booker
world.
T. Washington.
No.
No?
George Washington Carver.
George Washington, his best friend. Sorry.
Said
his next door neighbor best friend.
He is quoted by saying, "Do something ordinary."
That's right, George Washington
in an
Carver.
Extraordinary
By the
way.
way, if you have never read the biography of George Washington Carver,
it's difficult to get a hold of. I think we found ours in a used bookstore. It might be on Amazon now, but the one that we have is this
do
old
what it takes to
antique
find a copy of the autobiography of George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington, Up From Slavery. Those two books, the co-collaborators, I think probably did more in the late 1800s and early 1900s for people of color.
Not just people of color, for people that are stuck in slavery, mental slavery.
Yeah, I mean, all people are.
Mostly for color, because
anytime we see a people grow and do better, everybody benefits.
Well, I would go so far as to say anytime. I think that what Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver did for Tuskegee and for the emancipated slaves
so good.
actually is the forerunner to all leadership manuals that we have today. In any time that we have anything written about leadership, you could source probably from the work that Booker T. and Up From Slavery, as well as George Washington Carver's book. The background of it is that George Washington Carver was a sickly child who was born into slavery and ended up being traded and sold and bought, and found his freedom when he was about 10 years old and started working. And then by that time, Booker T. Washington had started the Tuskegee. And so through being just in the South and joining together, he ended up being put himself through school as a horticulturist and as one who was extremely deeply faith-filled. And George Washington Carver, praying one night, prayed that he would unlock the mystery of the peanut and was able to download through some deep meditation and prayerful thinking all of the different ways that a peanut could be used, from peanut butter to actually talking. When you read the book, when you read his biography, he actually goes through a time when he's talking to Henry Ford about biodiesel fuel for automobiles based on
Long time
the
ago.
soybean oil and the product of these beans and crop rotation and everything. So, but his statement of do something ordinary in an extraordinary way, coming through a time through segregation when Black people were not treated fairly by any means and still struggle today in some cases, were his way of overcoming that. And that's what Up From Slavery, as well as his book, is all about, is how do we overcome an oppressed society and still succeed and still win and still make our mark on this planet. And making our mark on this planet, he has said, just do something ordinary, whatever it is. Do something ordinary,
Yeah.
but do it extraordinary. And if you do it extraordinarily, then you will get the
You'll
attention
garner
of the world.
attention of the world. And I think that's, you and I have tried, I'm in sales. I sell software. I build software companies, try to sell them if I can. In consulting, and I consult with software companies. I sell digital products. I have a newsletter that'll be shipping shortly, podcasts,
I sell
content.
a book.
Jessica sells books around being happy and changing your attitude. And I would say, not feeling sorry for yourself. Just trying to feel better about yourself, right? Ultimately, once people understand that everybody's driven by the same thing, which is a desire to love themselves, and sometimes that desire is healthy and working really well. Sometimes it's jacked up from stuff your parents did, or from not getting what you want, or from just being spoiled rotten because you haven't upgraded your narrative yet. Sometimes that's what it takes in order to really move ahead in your life. But there's ways to do it. Books have been a huge help for us. If you recognize that by upgrading your narrative, you can tell yourself a different story about yourself than maybe you've told yourself in the past. And then you start to do the research and see just how many people have had really tough times with their narrative in life, and how by making the adjustment, they were able to go on and do greater things. Jessica and I really are about, this podcast is not about ego. We don't have enough subscribers to have a big ego. This podcast is about helping people and trying to be of service and do something useful and create something for posterity for our kids, so that they can see that their mom and dad didn't just exist and then die. And we're really serious about that. We really try hard to put something into this every week. And then Andrew spends hours and hours editing it. And it's really, it's to try to show people, like, hey, you could do cool stuff if you
So
put your mind to it.
as we close out this episode of shenanigans, hey, it's the night before
It is.
Halloween, and tomorrow is going to
Today's
be
the shenanigan channel.
tomorrow is going to be no diet, a lot of walking.
I may
but
or may not
we may or may not
have
indulge
some
tomorrow
of the Reese's peanut butter cups.
in the parents' portion of the trick or treat candies.
Brr.
As we close out, could you tell us a story? Can you think of a story of where you did something? And those of you, what is your, we want to hear from you. Put in the comment section your favorite quote. Let's learn something from each other. But Jeff, is there a story of a time that you can share with us about doing something ordinary in an extraordinary way and getting recognition or attention from that, when you just did something that maybe it was in negotiating a deal or sales, something that you thought was really no big deal, but it ended up being important to somebody else?
I was exceptional at telephone solicitation, picking up the phone and calling. I had conversion rates that were 5 or 10 times better than the average person. I didn't necessarily like the work, but I did so much of it that I got into a rhythm where I could force myself to do it and then get the momentum, and then the momentum just takes me momentum, more momentum, more momentum, more momentum. And I did it in an exceptional way. I did it at Citibank when I was credit card collecting. I was in the top 2 or 3 out of 400 collectors. I'd be in the top 3 out of 400 of anything. I don't care if it's underwater basket weaving. It's not hard. Just statistically, you're like 1% less. You're above the top 1%, or in the top 1%. And then I did it again at Perfigo. And it's, there were guys that made way more money than I made. But I had a lot of influence because I was the guy that could pick up the phone and make it rain for everybody else. And I got really frustrated with not being able to take the deals. Like, that was really frustrating. But it was a necessary part of my growth because now I don't do a lot of cold calling. People call me or people get deals teed up for me. And I can still pick up the phone and call, and I can still get business. I got a piece of business not too long ago that was worth, I don't know, $30,000 just because I was the one to pick up the phone and say, hey, this is a thing. I got a check for I got a commission check on it for $30,000. I think I do that at a world-class level, even though it's kind of a little thing and it doesn't necessarily pay really, really well. As an inside sales rep, my best year, I made $620,000. That's a lot.
It's really good for an inside
for
sales
an
rep.
inside salesperson to do that, right? And then I did it again at Tagile when I was saying I was running sales. Like it was just me.
I think a great example of that, and anybody who wants to see it, is Chris Gardner in The Pursuit of Happiness, where he finds out that if he doesn't hang up the phone in between calls,
he can get more calls.
He can get more calls out and close more business.
That's right.
And you were very much in the same boat.
I was so hungry. I was so angry that I was poor and that you had bet so much of your life on me, and I just had continued to let you down, that it really motivated me to want to make something of myself. Plus Dan, my father-in-law is CEO of a public company, and I marry Miss America over here, and then I'm sucking at everything in my life.
Let the record show I've never thought that you've sucked at anything, because everything that I see that you do,
it was about what I thought
exceptional.
It was how I felt about myself. I wanted to feel good about myself, and I think most people can relate to the fact that they would like to feel good about themselves if they could do it, if they could find a way to do it. And I think that if somebody's out there saying, well, that sounds good, but how do I feel good about myself when I had, got run over by a truck when I was a kid, or somebody made me eat carrots, or whatever the thing is that's getting in the way? I would say that ultimately the narrative, the story we tell ourselves about ourselves, and the physiology, Tony Robbins talks about making your move or getting in good shape. I would say just go for a walk. Just walk to the end of the driveway and back, and do that until you feel good. And then walk to the end of the block and back, and then walk around the block. 2 weeks later, you're walking around the block every day. And if you can get your physiology right and your narrative right, you will start to feel better about yourself. And when I say, what does that mean? Get your narrative right. Recognize your narrative is made out of ones and zeros. It's made out of facts, and it's made out of opinions. The facts, your subconscious can handle, because you actually believe those things are true because they're facts. I wouldn't be worried about the facts. So-and-so didn't invite you to prom or whatever. Those are facts. Your subconscious has no problem with facts. What the subconscious mind has trouble with, feeling good about yourself, is when you have opinions anchored to the facts. So-and-so didn't invite me to prom, and that means I'm not pretty. Or so-and-so didn't go out with me, and that means that I'm not a good guy because I couldn't get this girl to go out with me, or whatever. The opinions that are shaping how we see ourselves, when we anchor those to facts in our narrative, it's like pancreatic cancer, and it just tears your self-image in half. So we got to go through, and what I recommend doing is take a black pen, write out your narrative, then take a red pen and go and circle all the opinions, cross out those opinions, and then write them better. And if you'll do that, you'll start to feel better about yourself. And that ultimately, everybody does everything in their life so they can have a sense of self-love and feel better about themselves. So we want you to feel better about yourself. We want to help you feel better about you. And I found that when you have people who feel good about themselves, you don't have to teach them how to vote. You don't have to teach them how to be nice at the grocery store with the shopping carts and with their cars trying to run people over. Like, people do that stuff because they don't feel good about themselves. And if we can be a positive force for that, That's our example of John 1:1 through 1:5, being the light that shines in darkness, and the darkness understands, doesn't comprehends it not. The haters for this podcast or any other podcast, they do not understand the light shining in darkness. And all we can do is shine brightly and hope that they come around.
Well, you're either blinded by the light or you're
Or
illuminated
you put some
by the
sunglasses
light.
on.
And we hope that you've been illuminated and had a good laugh. And thank you as always, for tuning into the Jeff Heilman Project, for sharing it, for liking, subscribing, for getting notifications, because we cannot wait to get to meet you.
Yep.
Have a great one, guys. See you next time.